Hey there, how are you doing? So I have finally found some time to put together and upload this video. Okay, so today I want to talk to you about Kethu, its symbolism, and Kethu's association with psychology, behavioral neuroscience, and a little bit of biology as well. Okay. So this whole video is going to be about Kethu and how we can look at Kethu from a practical approach. Okay. So before that, let me just show you this thing. It's interesting. We got to look at his image, symbol image. Hang on a sec. Okay, so okay, I'm a little primitive. All right, doing things about Kethu is going to be very primitive, and I'm not using any editing tools or tech. I'm just a very primitive person, so bear with me. Okay, so look at that with the 5 hooded serpents at the back, and then there's another 5 thing on the shield, a sword, a red flag. All right, so yeah, Kethu seems to be always associated with everything red. So Kethu is also known as the lunar eclipse, right? And we get a blood moon, beautiful blood moon, a total lunar eclipse, which is upcoming in another few weeks' time on March 3rd. And those of us in Asia, more towards the Pacific, we are able to perhaps enjoy beautiful blood moon on March 3rd. I'm waiting for that. Okay, now back to this thing. Right, now it is interesting when you notice Kethu is a serpent head, okay? And which part of the brain is called the reptilian brain? Interesting connection, isn't it? Reptilian brain. So the reptilian brain is primarily associated with primal functions, survival instincts, okay? Fight or flight responses, and basic drives. So what drives us really in life? I mean, people grew up in the same household and then they become totally different people. How is that? But yet we are so connected. Genetically, biologically we are connected, but mentally, psychologically, we seem different person. So what is that very primal drive within us that make us choose our career? Mostly these people, they will, mostly people will tell you the main drive is money. But what about your likes and dislikes? What about whatever that shapes you? Your very basic psychological makeup. How you respond to people. Are you aggressive? Are you passive aggressive? Are you the type who's always angry? Are you calm, sweet demeanor? What kind of person makes you? So what drives us to have this certain psychological makeup that is very much influenced by deep unconscious part of ourselves, which is so hidden and we do not know. Now in Vedic astrology, if you have done the due diligence of your research and you have been observing people and their natal charts, the position of Kethu in the natal chart, so the Rasi, the house, the nakshatra, all of it, any planet in association or in conjunction with Kethu, or any planet looking at Kethu looking at any planet. So all this plays a role in how we can be influenced, the bottom part of our psyche. So we always have a surface level, all right, surface level psychological expression, personality expression, and then there is something which is very deep. It's not something that we hide. That is a different scenario, wearing mask. That is a different topic altogether. However, this is more like what influences the surface itself. some people, they don't care, like, they just don't mind being rude and angry all the time, and they do not care about how they're being judged. All right. But some people can be very conservative in how they approach, with their personality expressions, and they do take into account how other people may judge them, gauge them, and blah blah blah, and whatever makes them, them. All right. So it's very interesting when it comes to observing people and natal charts based on their Kethu position, because conventionally, in conventional astrology, astrologers will tell you, we study the moon rules psychology, your personality. That's all just surface. I mean, after all, the eclipse of the moon is Kethu. So if you think moon rules psychology, wait until you surgically open the moon, open up your moon, your mind, and then go to Kethu's position, which is the Muladhara. That's where all the secrets are hidden. All right. All this Muladhara is the core. This is why in ancient Vedic knowledge, when we study mind sciences, we don't just study the brain. The brain is the fruit. We study the entire spine, the fruit and the roots. These are all very, very important to gauge a person's entire psychological makeup, behavioral neuroscience, whatever you want to call it. Okay. So Kethu is always this very primal instinct connected to Muladhara, just like its nakshatra, Mula nakshatra. All right, more on it in a bit later in the video. Basic drives. Okay, Kethu also deals with detachment, but that I'm going to do on a huge video in the next one. Okay, I'm not going to bring that one in. That's another side of Kethu, but let's talk the primal version. Okay, primal urges, your sexual urges to reproduce, your hunger, your basic necessities and all that. All right, all the Muladhara stuff. Okay, your very evolutionary nature, what makes us human at the very core. Okay, even love. Yes, even love. Deep-rooted traditions, just like Kethu's magnificent nakshatra known as Maha nakshatra, connected to ancestors. Okay, deep traditions. So the key word here is inheritance and ancestors. So what do hereditary inheritances, what do you inherit from your ancestors? Of course, land, property, businesses. All right, they're all part of hereditary inheritances, but biologically, this one. Okay, so again, genetics. Maha nakshatra, Ashwini nakshatra, Mula nakshatra, very much deep in its core, deals with the concept of genetics, because Kethu is about roots. Even from a psychological aspect, whatever that influences us from the most bottom of our core, and how we surface and express such our psychological self, not just on the outside, how we are, what drives us to like A and not B, what makes us. I want to do career A, not career B. I like to work for oil and gas and not be a supermodel, blah blah blah. Okay, whatever that, there's something deep that is able to influence us on the surface. You understand? Right. Instinctual nature and all that is very part of our very primal mind or primal brain, right? Right, where Kethu represents the deep-seated, often unconscious drives and survival mechanisms that modern psychology attributes to the survival brain. Okay, now we can also discuss drive for self-protection, fundamental to both, shapes human behavior. Okay, how an emphasis on tradition roots influences personality traits. Now, when we say roots, it can be inherent or it can be external. So the whole debate between nature versus nurtures, how it comes in context in this particular topic is interesting, because we live with our family, and that represents our genealogy, that represents our very traditions, family roots, culture and things like that. All right, so inherently genetics, and outwardly culture, family, lifestyle, how your grandparents, how was their lifestyle, and that lifestyle is what your parents learned, and your parents learned that lifestyle, and then they teach you that, and you just follow that, right? So whether we're getting diseases, inheriting diseases from our family, but also certain lifestyle, diet, way of thinking, because parents are going to indoctrinate you in a certain way, based on their beliefs, right? So all this, we can see how Kethu's influence in our chart, what kind of helps you to get an idea of the inward and external, what a person can attract into their lives. All right, because what we always attract is influenced by what is inherent within us, and we manifest it on outside. We don't have to force it out. Simply what is inside comes from externally and manifests externally, right? Now this is a very interesting part. Now another aspect of Kethu is that it rules our karmic blueprint, and it is beyond our control. Now interestingly, when we see the most bottom part of the brain, just like the most bottom chakra, the Muladhara, which is the survival mind, interestingly, the medulla oblongata, the most bottom part of the brain, clearly regulates involuntary functions vital to survival, entirely beyond conscious control. Symbolically, Kethu's association with karmic blueprints and predisposition aligns perfectly with this. It represents those inherent, almost preordained aspects of our existence that functions like the body's involuntary system, shaping our path and experiences in ways beyond our conscious grasp. Okay, so obviously we cannot control blood circulation, or our heart rate, or our breathing. We can't stop breathing for 1 hour. We can't. These things, even biologically, from a physiological aspect, it's beyond our control. All right, and what we have invested in another time could be a past life. All right, because I know saying past life, it sounds very controversial, blah blah blah, pseudoscience, right, for some people. But if you want to study astrology, you have to zoom out and you have to study it holistically, look at the big picture. Astrology cannot be understood from this minute tunnel visioned, for example, why were you born in this particular day? Why were you conceived in this particular date? Your soul and entering your mother, whatever, where your body was conceived, all right, where your nervous system was developing, happened in that particular time. Why were you born in this family? What attracted, what vibration pulled you to this particular family? There's so many things. So what you invested in another time, you reap in this particular time. So Kethu represents the past karmic blueprint, and Kethu also represents obstacles in life, interestingly. So when you study conventional astrology, you already know Kethu represents obstacles, signifies obstacles. So why are those obstacles coming? So you have worked so hard, you have aim and ambition, and you're going in this particular direction, and suddenly out of the blue, this particular obstacle comes into play, and now you're navigating and being mathematical about it and trying to solve that particular problem. Okay, so interestingly, when you try to put these two together, you bridge Western sciences and this particular Vedic science. It's so interesting how you can see what you call the concept of it. All right, the concept. So when you study Vedic astrology, these are like encryptions or codes. You must understand the language, just like how programming is, computer programming. These are encryptions and codes. And those who understand the language model, you can decipher and translate and understand what the whole story is. And when you study biology, and when you study physiology, when you study behavioral neuroscience, then it's just interesting to study the connection between brain and your behavior, and then you have this perspective from Vedic astrology coming in. All right, a beautiful marriage from both sides. Okay. All right, next, Kethu and its connection to Muladhara chakra. All right, now the Muladhara chakra, just like Kethu, represents the foundational or core of everything. It is interesting, Muladhara chakra is red, the total lunar eclipse, the blood moon is red with a reddish hue. Okay, so one of the things about Muladhara chakra is that it represents stability and security for the survival mind. What you're doing is you're just going out to work and working for your security, your stability. That's what every rat in this race is looking for ultimately. All right, in this mundane world, in this survival world. Okay, now if you really think about it, all right, if you really think about it, psychologically, any kind of psychological impediment finds its roots and chaos in the lack of stability and security in life. The brain is constantly in anxiety when stability and security is not met. Primal mind is in chaos, and as it then reflects physiologically in our nervous system. All right, so anxiety itself has many different expressions. Some anxiety is just quite mental. Maybe you fear someone, and you know it's not physiological yet. It's just a mental concept. Oh, I have to pay my debts. You know, my salary is not in, so it's just a mental concept. For some people, anxiety is more of a physiological expression. Now, their neurotransmitters may not fire properly, and the nerves will, go into out of whack. When the nerves are out of whack, the nervous system is out of whack, it affects the heart. And these kind of people, they may suffer from what you call panic attacks, anxiety. So now it becomes a physiological issue, and they may be given nerve relaxers. Okay, so there are many different levels of anxiety, and the same way how a pancreas is impaired, and that causes pancreas is not able to function properly, and that causes type 1 diabetes, right? There are certain organs or parts in our brain that can be quite impaired and also cause any kind of mental health problem. Okay, so again, for astrology enthusiasts, I would like you to take data from people, birth details and all of this, and collect it, and then study them. Study different people with Kethu and Moon conjunction, Kethu in Kethu Nakshatra. Alright, I have seen people. I give you a very famous person's DOB. 1st July 1961. Very random. This is Lady Diana's DOB. 1st July 1961. So she has Kethu in Dhanishta in Kumbh Rasi and Moon in Dhanishta in Kumbh Rasi. So she has Kethu and Moon conjunction. And that woman could never find happiness in her life despite what she had. I don't blame her, but she was known to be erratic and quite impulsive natured person with a lot of psychological problem. What her husband did only triggered this to come. There are many women who go through these problems but yet remain calm and composed. So it depends, right? So why did, how come Diana was a little had certain mental health issues going on? Her eating, what do you call that? She had an eating disorder, right? That was going on, and that was a sort of a coping mechanism for her, the psychological issues that she was going through. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk to you about is interesting because Kethu and Muladhara represent everything that is related to core, foundational, everything that is base. All right. So when you look at the Muladhara, this is we're looking at very red 4-petaled chakra, and these are the the energy centers of life, creation, all that, right? So when we look at Muladhara, and the element is of earth, okay, you just have to think of molten lava. All right, molten lava. What is lava actually underneath our earth? What is lava? It is the crucibles that make soil and earth. Earth is soil, soil is earth. All right. So when it is the very deep red, when it comes out, the volcano and all that, it now suddenly appears a little orangish. All right. But deep in the earth, what color it is? When it comes out and interacts with air, it cools down a little bit, the surface earth temperature, right? And as it cools, then it becomes igneous. It creates igneous rocks. As it cools down, it creates fertile soil that make the earth. So it's the crucibles that make the earth. All right. It is known in Vedic as Prithvi, and also mother. Muladhara is connected to mother and the feminine. So polar opposite Vishuddhi is blue. The husband and wife, red and blue. Who is that? Okay. So this one drinks poison. Remember all the stories? Okay. The husband drinks poison. It becomes blue. So that is the ether, the akasha. The ether marries the earth. So now the crucibles that make the earth and the fundamentals that make you. Now it's interesting when you look at Muladhara, there's 4 petals. Now again, okay, the building blocks of life. So when you study genetics, it's interesting that the 4 bases found in DNA molecule, adenine, cytosine, guanine, and thymine, ACGT. All right. 4 petals in Muladhara and the 4 bases, the very fundamental of your DNA molecule. Isn't that an interesting connection? Okay. Now, Muladhara is also connected, is reflective of the cosmic sky clock star known as Mula Nakshatra, which is lorded by Brahma and Nritti. Okay. Now, Nritti is one of the deities for Mula. Interesting that I always connect Nritti with molten lava. Nritti is known to be fierce and destructive, and destructive. And if you were to go inside molten lava, it might even melt your skeleton. And it's fierce, piping hot, beyond hot. So Nritti has such an archetype and personality that I always connect Nritti to molten lava, and she is a feminine deity connected to Kali and a very fierce version. Now, mother is the one that gives life. So when you go back to lava, it's what creates our earth, the soil that we stand on at the end of the day. So make that connection. And also the Brahma's aspect in Mula Nakshatra would be creative aspect. All right. Obviously, you have to have the blueprint, the foundational archetype, just like genetics. You have those 4 bases, and then boom, 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 you develop from there, right? Different combinations, blah, blah, blah. And so similarly, the creative aspect, you need to have the archetype to influence development, architecture of everything, be it on a macro scale universe or micro scale human, animal, whatever. This is why it's called archetype, architect. This is where in Mula Nakshatra, Brahma's influence plays a huge role. And also Mula Nakshatra comes in Dhansa Rasi, interestingly, because to create is to have knowledge of creation, right? The archetype and the very genesis of everything. So this is why Dhansa Rasi ruled by Jupiter. So all connected to the 9th house, having knowledge of everything. Goes back to knowledge of Genesis. Get it? Okay, interesting. The first nakshatra is Kethu's nakshatra. Kethu always represents beginning and foundational core, blah blah blah. Is Ashwini nakshatra, the two horses. All right. One of the key words to understand Ashwini would be speed. And what do we have in the very beginning? What do we have in the very beginning is cell division process. Now, when you understand something like meiosis, all right, the two-step cell division process in sexually reproducing organisms, one of the thing is speed. Now, this is just my personal theory that the twin, one becomes two. That means multiplication or cell division. Okay, so Ashwini is known for speed, and during this portion where your cells are dividing during conception, the speed is a very important part, and it just goes which chromosome, which gene, which is interesting. All right, but all done in a very short amount of time. And of course, the next nakshatra, the final nakshatra, it starts with Ashwini, Magha, and Mula nakshatra. Okay, Mula is the pinnacle of Kethu's energies and being reflected in Muladhara chakra. Now, Maha nakshatra would all be about hereditary inheritances. So, be it biological inheritances, physiological inheritances, or it could be monetary land, property. This is why it's so connected to one of the symbols for Maha Nakshatra would be royal, king, because royalty always, they have hereditary inheritances, land, titles, all of those things. So guys, this is a little thing that I put together, and this is obviously because when I started going deeper into astrology, so one of the things that pulled me was this Kethu and its significance in a natal chart, and I started studying it. So when I studied about moon and people's psychology, it was just it was not feeding me what I wanted. But once I started going into Kethu's, I started opening up Kethu in people's chart, and I just use the natal chart. I don't go into Namansha, I don't go into D10, I don't go into, just the person's natal chart is enough for me. And what I find is amazing. There's so much we can know about a person just going into Kethu of that person. Okay, like for example, very good looking people, very good supermodels, check their Kethu would be in Bharani Nakshatra, Purva Palguni Nakshatra, Purva Shada Nakshatra. Okay, interesting, isn't it? There's always a mix and match. Now, in some of my next videos, I'm going to elaborate more. Okay, and so you can understand how these concepts sort of works together. Okay, and it's interesting making this video. I will see you in the next one. Ta-da! Ta-da! Ta-ta! Ta-da! Bye!